Yeah, I can reserve it for another purpose.
Mr. Ram just raised some concerns, sir, about the commission and you being allowed free reign to question the witnesses. How do you respond? Do you think Mr. Ram is unfair in his criticisms?
Mr. Ram is a lawyer, and Mr. Ram has the right to advocate on behalf of the constituency that he represents. What I would say is that in this commission of inquiry, certainly the rule of evidence is a little more relaxed, but not only that, but in fairness to a witness, one should put propositions to that witness that conquers the evidence of a witness. For example, the witness said he never saw cell phones, he never saw improvised weapons, he never saw marijuana. You saw through vigorous examination, the witness was forced, or he was, after examination, he was forced to concede that he did smell marijuana from time to time on that living unit, and the conclusion was that marijuana was in that living unit.
But you asked if you saw.
You asked if he saw, he said he didn't see.
Right, but he smelled it.
But it's different. You asked one question, he answered to that question directly.
Yes, and if he smells marijuana, certainly he wasn't smelling it on Camp Street. He was
But
smelling
that
it
wasn't the
within.
question you asked. You asked a direct question, he answered you directly to that question.
So marijuana was in that living unit.
But that wasn't
That
what
was
you
what you
asked.
asked.
Well, you heard the questions that were asked and answers that were given. But what I can tell you is the inmates, certainly when one comes here and the evidence is incredible, that inmate's evidence, none of it is worthy of belief. He's come here before you, and you can see his hair isn't singed, his skin isn't burnt. The guy looks clean as a whistle.
But there are many other prisoners who look clean as a whistle as well.
And that was as a result of the efforts of the fire department, the prison officers, and the police to rescue them when they barricaded themselves in that living
So
unit.
you form an opinion, sir.
That is what the evidence is. They refused to come out, barricaded that door with a cork, and forced the prison officers to have to go through a life and death situation to free them. And it was a life and death situation because 18 of them actually died, 17 in the prison and one at the hospital.
Do we have video evidence of this, sir?
Yes, we do.
And
Do
it
you
will be
intend to
presented here?
submit the evidence?
The evidence, the surveillance videos were already submitted to the commission. The commission will rule on Mr. Browne and the Guyana Bar Association's motion, and at the appropriate time, the video surveillance will be played and explained to the tribunal with the media present, and you will get to see a play-by-play objective version of what took place, and you will be able to see the valiant effort of the prison officers. And I have to tell you this, not only the inmates of the Georgetown prison have suffered, the entire Georgetown prison is in mourning, from the superintendent right down to the lowest ranking warden. Some of those officers, they're at home on sick leave. They all need counseling for post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't want you to, for one moment, to believe that that situation was not traumatic for those officers. That was a major crisis situation, unlike anything they've seen. It was a critical incident. It was a severe incident. And that incident, we're not trying to blame the victims. We're very sorry for what took place at the Camp Street jail. But those inmates, had they followed the directions of the officers, no lives would have been lost.
So since you're confirming that they locked themselves in, could you confirm if indeed they were being beaten on the tarmac?
No, what I can confirm is that the task force, there was a group of task force officers, and in any situation where you have a riot, a standard operating procedure where you extract everyone and then you remove the ringleaders. And so as the inmates were removed, the task force would rush, and that is standard operating procedure even in North America. The task force would rush the ringleaders and remove them from the area. Obviously, if an inmate offers resistance, the officer has to use the use of force continuum and escalate force as necessary.
So are you saying force was used?
If an extraction is force. You're taking an inmate away from the area where the inmate is, and you have to use force to remove the inmate. You're pushing the inmate and removing the inmate from that area.
Could you say the video surveillance was from CCTV cameras or an electronic device?
I can tell you that there's two different types of videos. There was an officer who recorded most of what took place was recorded on camera by an officer recording the situation, and secondly, there was a CCTV camera that recorded most of what took place, or everything that took place within the range of that camera. Those videos were downloaded and provided to the commission. You as members of the media heard the issue about lawyers. You as well as members of the media have right to access anything the commission has in its possession. You can ask your lawyer to make an application to the commission to have those videos released to you. And the commission will hear our submissions and make a ruling. But certainly you in a democratic society can make that application. Whether or not it's granted, it's another story.
And in your opinion, the video surveillance removed all culpability from the prison authorities?
No, an issue of culpability is a ruling that a court has to make. I don't make pronouncement on culpability. My submission is going to be that the prison authorities did everything within the standard of care, within the standard of care and due diligence that they need to exercise as prudent professionals. They did everything within their mandate to ensure that no lives were lost. And my submission will also be that the prison officers went even beyond that by risking their lives during that fire to ensure that inmates were rescued. Because you'll hear that the officer that was cutting the lock, he was being poked with improvised weapons. You'll hear that evidence, but you'll hear that despite that, and despite the injuries that officers suffered, those officers continued to cut through that housing and only left when the fire got out of control.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.